Can everyone see that okay?
Mm-hmm.
So my name is Violet Bemis. I'm a developer here at iBec. In today's webinar, we're going to be going through and exploring some of the features of WordPress. I'm going to start off with some basics, and then I'll be joined by 4 other developers to go through some more advanced topics. We will be taking questions during the webinar, so if you have any, please feel free to type them in the chat. So to get us started with the basics, most WordPress users are going to need to know how to create a page or post, add content, and use media. Pages and posts are different but very similar. Posts are for blog content and pages are for general site content. Creating them is pretty much the same, both located in the sidebar of the dashboard. You just have to click Add New. Once you've created your page or post, you'll need to add your content. Many of our clients are using the classic editor, which primarily relies on the WYSIWYG for adding content. The WYSIWYG stands for what you see is what you get, and that's because it allows you to add and style content similarly to how you would in a document editor like Word or Pages. You can add media to this field, tables, shortcodes, text, and pretty much any other content that you want to add to your page. So one thing that I find is often overlooked when people are adding content to their pages is the featured image field. It doesn't appear in the body content of the page, and it's located on the sidebar, so I find that that's usually why it's overlooked. But it is important because it will appear in social sharing. So you see the little screenshot I have there when you like share a link on Facebook or other sites, the image will appear with that link and help it to stand out among just plain text results. And it'll also show up in search. So you do want to add that if you've been missing it. So if you are adding content to your pages, you'll definitely need to know how to use the media library. It allows you to add, store, and access all of the files that you might need on your website. You can store and use images, videos, audio, documents of many types. However, most users are going to be using it for images primarily, and it does provide some really powerful attributes to use with images, mainly alt text, which is really helpful since it's within the media library. You can add it quickly to all of your images and it will be pulled into the site wherever that image is used, rather than having to add it manually every time you're adding an image. So that pretty much covers the basics. Next, Jamie is going to walk through the Gutenberg editor.
Hi everyone, I'm Jamie. So Gutenberg is WordPress's latest editor that was launched in December 2018. It's the largest update that WordPress has had in a while. And the biggest difference is that everything is a block. So instead of the classic editor where it's one big block of text and images, each paragraph, image, list, gallery, they're all separate blocks that can be dragged and dropped within the editor. It makes the editor a little bit more of an intuitive experience where what you see in the editor is more or less what you're going to see in the front end of the site too. It benefits both developers and the everyday user, making it like an awesome editor for beginners. So I listed out some of the blocks that you have available to you. Previously, if you wanted to do more than just align text, bold text, and the WYSIWYG editor, you'd need some sort of basic HTML or CSS knowledge or a third-party plugin, and it still could kind of look a little wonky on the front end. Now Gutenberg offers all of this functionality right out of the box, and you can just grab what you need and put it on the editor and see it on the front end right away. A few things you can do with Gutenberg is easily create custom layouts and save them. Like I said, you can drag and drop everything around instead of using the HTML, and you can save any blocks that you like and reuse them globally across the site. So for example, like a call to action that might be on the bottom of every single page, you can save that block and just add it globally every time you go to make a page. You can also crop, rotate, and zoom photos right from the image block. And there's also the possibility of creating custom blocks. This is something you need a developer to build out for you, but if your site is a little more unique, you can build out custom blocks for your site. A few tips and tricks. Gutenberg kind of makes it a little bit quicker to add content to a site through its shortcuts. All you have to do is do a backslash and type the block that you want. You can see that in the top video there. You can also use hashtags for headings. So if you want a heading 2, all you have to do is do 2 hashtags and it'll automatically populate a heading 2 for you. You can also drag images straight into the editor, which makes things super easy instead of going to the media library and then selecting it for the editor. You can also drag multiple images at once, and this will automatically create a gallery, which is one of my favorite blocks from Gutenberg. There's also a quicker way to add anchor tags and jump links. But if you're not ready to fully commit to Gutenberg, there's a plugin that you can get called Gutenberg Ramp. This lets you try Gutenberg on individual pages before you're ready to use it across your entire site. And as always, the iBec developers are available for questions if you do decide to choose Gutenberg.
All right. Hi there. My name is Eric Kerfon, and I'm here to talk to you today about ACF custom blocks. Jane briefly talked about them, but I'll get a little more in depth here. So advanced custom fields, it's a real heavy hitter in the plugin world. And really, if I had to pick one plugin tied to a WordPress instance, ACF would be the solution here. The plugin has been around since 2011 and is a great addition to any WordPress website, which really just needs more flexible data. The plugin allows a user to add and easily manage content to the WordPress edit screen, and the user can control the content and presentation. So with ACF, we now have custom blocks. So with the new integration of the ACF blocks, the plugin has basically created an add-on to the Gutenberg world. And yeah, these are really just custom Gutenberg blocks. And really, they just allow for more control over content at the post level. So getting a little bit more in depth here, and I'll follow up with an example. We're able to add a variety of fields onto one specific custom block, and the fields are chosen based on the needs of the client. Once the fields are selected, the dev is able to attach code to the field for a very custom solution. So it all makes sense. An example here for you is, let's say you like the ability to easily add a Google map to a page. What we could do is create a custom ACF block which integrates with Google Maps. So as you can imagine, there are many different types of settings involved. Where is the default location when the map loads? What is the zoom level? Do we want to add like a live traffic layer so drivers can see what parts of town avoid during the morning commute, so on. From here, the developer would add a text field to enter the address of the default location, maybe a cool slider. So the user can select a zoom field ranging from something like 1 to 16, and a select field of the layer type with options of something like traffic, transit, or bicycling. So many different options here. So then the user can now add multiple maps to a single page, utilizing different settings. And down the road, if more options need to be added, the dev can easily add on to the existing solution. And to me, I just think that the possibilities here are endless, and we can create blocks that are unique really to the client's needs. I think it's pretty cool. So that's a wrap for me.
Hi, my name's Sean. I'm just going to go over a few basic plugin tips for WordPress. So if you've ever had to look for or install a plugin on WordPress, the ecosystem for WordPress plugins can be pretty confusing, but there's some simple tips I think you can follow that will apply well to your search for a plugin. So currently there's over 40,000 plugins available on WordPress.org. Not all plugins are published on WordPress.org, so there's probably a lot more than 40,000 out there. There's a good mix of free plugins, paid plugins, and subscription plugins, and many types of plugin contributors from sole developers to large companies that just do WordPress plugins. So the first step to any plugin installation would be to research and examine your needs. So you want to make sure you're picking a plugin that's going to solve your issue, and then just thoroughly researching any plugin before installing it. I would recommend looking at reviews. So if the plugin is published on WordPress.org, you're able to see reviews. They have a 5-star rating system. And this is, you're able to do this right through the WordPress admin on the plugin page. So also important to look for when you're selecting a plugin would be if it's compatible with your current version of WordPress, if it's been recently updated. And I would recommend, seeing a plugin with a lot of 5-star reviews is a good sign, but also I would recommend looking at bad reviews because often they're more helpful than the good reviews, and it might save you some time from installing a plugin that's not going to work for you. And just because a plugin has a lot of installs and a lot of good reviews doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be 100% safe for your site. Plugins will often go out of date, and security vulnerabilities can be discovered over time. So if a plugin is not regularly updated, it can turn into a liability for your site. So I would recommend generally turning on auto updates when possible for your plugins. And if the plugin is crucial to the functioning of your site, for example, if you have an e-commerce site, it's probably a good idea to manually test those updates before installing them. So auto updates may not be the best option because your site could potentially stop functioning without you realizing it if they're updating by themselves. So installing plugins is fairly easy to do. You can do it right through the WordPress admin, like I mentioned. You can search from there. You can research reviews, see when plugins are updated. Most of them will link out to the website for the developer if you need to do further research. Let's see. You can also install plugins that you've downloaded from outside of WordPress.org. So a lot of these you will download as a zip file, which you can then upload through the WordPress admin. And I would just say, generally keeping in mind that every plugin you add to your site is going to increase the complexity and potentially impact the performance and loading speed of your site and the security down the road. So just making sure you pick a plugin that's going to solve your particular needs, but also doesn't do too much. So for example, a plugin might have 10 or 12 features, but you only need 2 of them. So in some cases, you may not even need a plugin to solve your problem. It could be a theme update or something simpler that you're looking for. So when possible, I would recommend avoiding installing bloated plugins just to keep your site lean as possible. And then finally, like the most important tip, I think, would be to not only disable, but also delete unused plugins. So you may try 3 or 4 plugins during your search, and you can disable them through the WordPress admin, but be sure to also delete them, because even if they're deactivated, the files are still on the server. So those plugins will no longer be getting updates when they're deactivated. So they could potentially become a security risk down the road. So just make sure to delete them if you're done with them. And you can do that right through the WordPress admin as well.
Hi, I'm Raina. I am just going to give a quick overview for some security best practices. I think a lot of users who are new to operating a site or unfamiliar with like the code structure, the development cycle, get intimidated by security. And I think people who are intimidated tend to put things out of sight, out of mind. So I just wanted to give some really quick, easy to access tools for you to use to make sure that your security is as up to date as possible and as easy to manage as possible. So the first thing would be to upgrade from PHP 5.6. PHP is the essentially the code base that your site is built on, and it goes through many different versions. Currently, we are on version 7.4, but any version over 7.0 is recommended. But a lot of sites, a wide array of sites currently are still on PHP 5.6. 5.6 ran out, it's at end of life, and it is no longer receiving any security updates, even if vulnerabilities are found. So it is recommended to move to a more recent version of PHP. And luckily in WordPress, if you go to your dashboard, you'll get a notice, really easy to see, and it will show you exactly what version you're on. So if you do need to update, that is something you can check quickly. And if you don't have that notice, then great job. The next piece is maintaining general updates for WordPress. Again, similar to PHP, WordPress itself, as well as, like Sean mentioned, all of your plugins will receive regular updates over time. And these updates can be something as small as just improving the way a menu looks, to as large as patching a security vulnerability that is present in the previous version. So it's important to maintain your updates. For WordPress, if you're on the dashboard, it will show you if there's a new version of WordPress available. So for example, 5.8 came out recently, and so you might see this notice at the top of your dashboard that says, you know, please update to 5.8. If you have plugins that need updates, you'll probably see the updates section on the sidebar with this red circle and a number. That's representative of how many updates there are to be run. And it's pretty simple. All you have to do is go into that section, check all of the plugins that you wish to update, and click Run Updates, Update Now. It will manage all of these automatically, assuming all of your plugins are validated and checked against any licensing that there may be. And it's as easy as that. And it really goes a long way for improving security on your site. That's it for updates. The next thing I wanted to go over is login security. A lot of sites can be vulnerable to what's called a brute force attack, and that is essentially when a malicious user goes to your login page and just runs a script that tries every single combination of username and password that it can manage, and it just runs in the background until it's able to gain access to your site. Luckily, there are some really easy ways to prevent that from happening at all. One of the best ways to do that is to change your default login path. So if a malicious user finds out that you're on WordPress, a lot of users don't change their usual login path from your site's URL /WP login. And then that user knows exactly where to go to access that login page to begin running their script. So if you change that path, they don't necessarily know where that path lives any longer, and it can go a long way for making sure they can't even get started. The next tip is to change your common login names. A lot of users use admin as their login name. You might use maybe your site's name dash admin or dash user, and changing that out to something that is different, more unique, will prevent them from being able to just type in admin and then check every single password that they can. It just puts an extra step in there. And the last piece is with any security talk, you're going to hear about using complex passwords, using a password manager. That's just general security 101. I don't need to go into that too in depth. If you do have questions about password safety, be happy to talk about that more. But just a reminder, do make sure that your passwords are complex, that they're not written down physically anywhere, that they're not stored in plain text on your local machine. And then last thing is I wanted to give a recommendation for all-in-one WordPress security and firewall. This is a plugin that is really easy to enable for your site and has a lot of tools that you can use to make sure that your security is being managed. It will allow you to change your default login path. It will allow you to set up a firewall. It will allow you to see which users are accessing your site and your administrative backend live. And it also has this great security strength meter, which after you've gone through the security settings available in the plugin, it can give you an estimation of how secure your site is. What are the improvements that have been made? And this is really handy, especially if you're doing reporting throughout your business, to just give, hey, last month our strength meter, was down in the yellow, and this month we've got it up in the green, and that's a big improvement.
All right, great. Thanks, Raina and everyone. It looks like we didn't get any questions in the chat, but if anyone has any before we wrap up, we'd be happy to answer them.
Hi, Ed. Looks like Ed wants to know, how can I add a search bar to my WordPress site?
So this is something that is included with certain themes. If it's not included with the theme that you have, it's definitely something that can be looked into with either a plugin solution or by one of us at iBec. Looks like we have another one. Is there an easy way to convert a Squarespace site to a WordPress site besides starting over? I don't believe there is. Do any of the other developers have insight into that?
I think that essentially is going to come down to getting your content out of Squarespace. So I know Squarespace has a way to export your content, and WordPress has some built-in import functionality where you can kind of take a spreadsheet or CSV of your content and import that to posts or pages. So it can be done. There's some plugins also for importing into WordPress that may be better than the default, but I think the key is getting it out of Squarespace in a format that you can then import into WordPress. But the WordPress importers are very flexible, so they can work with pretty much any format as long as you can get that content out of Squarespace, which I believe they do have export functionality. There may be like some manual work to recreate any like special functionality you may have, and re-uploading images and that sort of stuff, but for the most part, it's pretty smooth. Thanks, Ed.
I wanted to jump off of the search bar question real quick. Since a lot of themes, like Violet mentioned, don't have the search bar available by default, one plugin that I've used in the past is called Ivory Search, and that lets you tailor make exactly what you're interested in for your search results, as well as the look and feel. And then it gives you what's called a short code which is a little snippet of code that you put on in the main body of your WordPress interface to have the search functionality appear there. It's pretty intuitive, in my opinion, but definitely give it a look. It has a free version, and then it has some extra options if you like it and want to pay.
Okay, great. Well, thanks everyone for your questions. This is really good. If you have anything else you think of, feel free to reach out to us. We're always happy to set up a call or just answer via email. And thanks for coming.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.